Professor Wright, how did you learn about the Lvov-Warsaw School, and what do you find interesting in this philosophical tradition?
Sure. How did I learn about the school? Serendipitously. I was never a philosophy student. I started off in the sciences. So when I ended up in California, I was a student of Guy Lecher, who wrote a book on Andres Mostowski on branching quantifiers. And at that time, I had been studying truth a little bit under Michael Lynch. And we had a number of other graduate students, one of which was Ryan Hickerson. And Ryan Hickerson wrote his dissertation on Twardowski. So from him, that's where I first learned about it. There were some other figures there, Jeff Yoshimi as well, who was working on Husserl at the time. And then Douglas Patterson, I think, who also wrote a book on Tarski and so forth. So that was the sort of my first awareness and impetus for sort of learning more about the school, and that was quite some time ago, 25 years. But I think the thing that I most appreciate is the sort of scientific approach to, which resonates with me in my background, the sort of clarity, the emphasis on precision and accuracy, and really just sort of excavating ideas, seeing where they lead, as opposed to approaching things dogmatically.
Mm-hmm. And philosophy is understood differently, and this scientific philosophy, which was proposed by Twardowski, is only a kind of understanding of philosophy. Why do you think it's important to make this kind of philosophy? Because sometimes you may think that science already answers all the questions. So why do we still need philosophy?
Well, I don't know that I think scientists are also not always sanguine about the extent to which they think they have the answers to everything. But they're certainly open to being wrong. That's a very crucial aspect of science. And I think in certain areas of philosophy, you find that approach as well, a kind of methodological naturalism, using the methods of science, the empirical methods, but also rational methods, an important aspect of science. And I see you see that replicated in a number of places in the Lvov-Warsaw School. So,
you told me that you started to be interested in philosophy of the Lvov-Warsaw School through the concept of truth. Do you think that the concept of truth is something essential generally for the society or for science?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The concept of truth, I think, is one of these fundamental concepts. And it's very hard to get certain debates going, like debates about realism and anti-realism, scientific realism, that is, without having a sense of what this concept is. It drives a lot of the things we want to say in philosophy of language, in terms of, say, a truth conditional theory of meaning, trying to get something like that on the table. One of the things, though, just to pivot a little bit, that I really appreciate about the Lvov-Warsaw School was, and maybe this is a little more personal, the commitment to community. And it's very easy to kind of sit in an armchair by yourself and think about truth and so forth. But philosophy, like science, should be done in a communal way. And the thing about Twardowski is that he brought in so many different figures over so many decades that ended up generating a lot of fecund ideas, not just about the concept of truth, but about all manner of other things.
You said that what you like in the philosophy of Twardowski is this clarity, justification, arguments which are built in philosophy. But do you think there are some specific methods that are used in philosophy and are not used in science?
Sure. There's a number of ways in which scientists focus on, for example, producing models. Those models can be used in experimental approaches, so a good experimental design focusing on, say, trying to approximate a perfectly controlled experiment in which you're looking at the independent and dependent variables and so forth. And you might focus on, again, using different kinds of models. My own background was in neuropharmacology, so I did work on operant conditioning and rat brain experiments and so forth. But you still find in philosophy and science, this also focus on making good inferences, right? So you can't just have models, you have to sort of do some hypothesis testing and thinking about the ways in which some inferences can be made better and worse in terms of, say, like the hypothetical deductive method and so forth. And one of the things about the Lvov-Warsaw School is the focus on really thinking about probability theory and Haziasen, thinking about rational cognition and Adjukewicz, thinking about how to construct deductive systems so that they don't fall prey to certain kinds of objections or paradox and so forth. And that's a very important fundament on which science can proceed, but the scientists, of course, are just doing bench science. They don't have the time or the wherewithal to actually try to establish the sort of foundations for science, solve the problem of induction, things like that. So, it's, yeah.
And my last
Sure.
question concerning logic, because in the Lvov-Warsaw School, logic was practiced in a mathematical way, because, for instance, Jan Łukasiewicz introduced this mathematical logic and founded this Polish School of Mathematical Logic, but simultaneously, coming from Twardowski, pragmatic logic or informal logic was practiced. Do you think that this informal logic is still important in education and in
Yes.
academia?
Yes, absolutely, because at some point we still have to communicate. And so there's this sort of holy drive to make sure everything is formalized and mathematicized and that everything can be proven in terms of its correctness conditions and so forth. But in order to sort of focus on how to persuade each other, how to argue with each other in productive ways that drive progress and lead to the advancement of both philosophy and science, informal logic has to be the kind of thing that also has strictures, that has good research being done on it and things like that. Otherwise, we end up sort of risking both this kind of partition into sort of people who are focused on formalization and mathematics, and also the rest of us who don't do that kind of thing, and then without any kind of work on, say, informal logic, it's hard to communicate with those two. So informal logic tends to sort of bring people together, I think, and that's very important. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you so much.
Sure.